Miss Kitty had to have 23 feet of intestine removed, cost your parents $10,000. And every year, your dad would announce that he had the most expensive mule in Wallowa County. And he was very proud of that. And he always had to bring that mule home healthy, or he knew he would face the wrath of Carolyn. So, and one night, Don and I were packing out meat, probably his bull that year. It was your bull that year. And so we took it down the wheels, and we were spending the night down there, and we heard a bell ringing, a horse bell. And 4 in the morning, it was going on for quite a while, but 4 in the morning.
Right, we're all cussing the neighbors because we thought it was the camp down the way.
So I finally got up and went out, and it wasn't the neighbors, it was Miss Kitty and Smokey Joe, Ken's saddle horse. And they were in hobbles, and when we had left to pack the meat out, Ken had put them out to graze, and they followed us 5-6 miles down the trail, across the creek, across the river, and showed up at camp there. And so we quickly had to tie up some ropes and tie them to trees, and they were a little bit beat up. And luckily, Miss Kitty was in great shape. Otherwise, we knew that Ken would be looking for a new residence, and so we took him back up the trail. We were going to relax in the morning and have a nice big breakfast, but we knew Ken was really worried back at top camp. So Don tied him to his pack animal, and all back up the trail. We went early the next morning, so Ken, he was greatly relieved to see those two. And he could have shot his horse, but he knew that Miss Kitty had to come home safe and sound.
He blamed his horse, Smokey Joe, because his horse had fallen in love with somebody.
One of my mares.
One of your mares,
no doubt.
Decided he didn't want to graze, he wanted to go chase that mare.
In I think it was the year 2000, they had big fires in that country, and we couldn't even get into our hunting area. So we had to find a new area, and so your husband, Scott, flew me over at about 50,000 foot elevation, couldn't see squat, but we flew an area and we decided where we'd go hunting. And we went over there that fall to an area we had no idea where we were. And Ken and I got there early. Don showed up a little bit later. And we tried to get up to where we were going to pack our camp in, and we thought we'd better scout it first. And we got up there, and there was about 3 feet of snow, and it was snowing hard. And Ken was saying, God, where are the horses going to eat up here? And I looked at him and said, where are the elk going to eat up here? And so we turned around and headed back down to base camp and just said, well, forget that. And we were feeling, in the meantime, just before season, we could see people packing up that way. That was the place to go hunting. And we felt pretty meager that we weren't man enough to go set up camp in 3 feet of snow. But we stayed in base camp, and lo and behold, we all shot elk that year. And those folks up there literally were up there starving. We had to feed their stock and them when they came out, and we shot elk because they're not stupid. They came down where we were, but the funny thing was, I killed an elk, and Don killed an elk, and so we didn't have deer tags, and so we just followed Ken around, and we've never done that before. And so one morning we went back to the same open ridge line that where I'd killed mine, and Don and I were tracking right behind your dad, and he went up.
Yeah, he peeked over the top of the ridge and hunkered down and said, "There's elk down there," and we kind of parallel them. They were feeding up the draw on the other side of the ridge, and he got up there and he stood up, and then all of a sudden he shot, and we went on down ahead of him, and Steve was ahead of me and found the bull that he had shot, and Ken hollered down, "Has it got horns?" And luckily it did, so he'd shot the right elk. This was in that North Fork country where the weather was so bad, and we had been packed down and gotten a supply of horse feed, and we're coming back up, and there was one part you had the trail crossed the top of this real steep slope in the open, and the slope went down to a cliff, and Ken's horse lost its hind feet and went down, and Ken fell off and got his foot caught in the breeching and was hanging there, and the horse was holding on by his front toenails, looking over his shoulder at him. It made a great picture, and Ken took about 2 or 3 minutes to get his feet untied, and then he slid a ways and caught a bush so he didn't go over the cliff, and then the horse scampered up and you know, a lot of horses would have reacted and they'd have both rolled down over the cliff.
I'd say persistent is, if you want a word. You know, we hunted with Ken right up to, I think he was 70 or close to it. And he made the hike every day. Ken never missed the bell. 13 years, we're up in the mountains, 10 days, 12 days at a time. You know, it's hard work. Everybody thinks we're up there hunting all the time. It's all about logistics. And Ken always, we all did. We all met the bell in the morning, no matter how hard a day it was or however hard that we celebrated if we had some elk down. The next morning we were out elk hunting again. And I always like to look at the older guys and think that I want to someday be able to do it when I'm that age. And
Yeah.
Ken did it right. He,
That being said, he introduced us to a term called kill day.
yes.
Because every once in a while the weather would change and everything would be just right for the elk to be up and moving, and he'd announce today's a kill day. And a lot of times he was right, that it would all work out.
And the converse
would
of
find-
that was we'd hunt every day, every weather. Don and I did. We didn't know better. And if it's snowing hard, Ken would say, "Don't go hunting today. Stay in camp and relax because the elk are bedded down and they'll get you. You'll jump them and you won't get a shot at them." And so he taught us to relax when the weather was probably its worst. And it's kind of weather that you can get yourself in trouble in too when you're out there in the woods. But that's when you have the least chance. And all you're going to do is scare the elk away anyway. So there are kill days and rest days with Ken, but most of them were hunt days. And
Yeah, after we moved to the salmon, then the weather was a lot better. We hunted every day, but up there in the Clearwater, it's just...
But as I said here, I was telling him the
God-awful.
story about that first time we took him in there to Black Mountain. And we got him up there where our camp was, and he had to scrape, 6-8 inches of snow off to put the tent up. And he thought we'd taken him to hell. He kept saying,
and then it snowed 2 feet and smashed his tent.
yeah, right. It collapsed his tent, so he wasn't
Sleeping
happy
tent.
about that. But
Yeah,
it was tough cutting.
I can remember I was the cook always, and one of the
when you were
best...
in camp.
When I was in camp, yeah. When I came in time to cook dinner. But one of the best comments I had, Ken announced one day, says, "It's a good thing we're eating good, otherwise we'd be out of here." Because the weather was so bad.
That's the beauty of something like this. You are totally tested. And I'm sure that's true of your dad and your mom too, is that when you go on these trips, you get tired, you're out of food, and it oftentimes can try you to the edge. And it always, I never saw them argue. They were always able to, work things out, and so with the three of us.
It was when they were taking pictures, usually at the end of a trip, and one fellow in particular would end up with like this, one hand behind his back and leaning into the camera.
Drink there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like this. And then they would tell the story, and it was an old ODFW employee, I think, from long ago. But this started like 25 years ago. And then we taught it to our kids, and pretty quick, at the end of the trip, everybody does that usually. And it's
Kind of like the
tradition.
Heisman pose for college football.
Yeah.
But